Throughout these last videos in the Drupal 8 Developer Prep series, what we've done is illustrated how Symfony is used inside of Drupal 8. We looked at event dispatching, that was one of the most recent bits. We looked at dependency injection containers and how those are used. We looked at services, how we can override services and define our own services. We even looked at manipulating the request and response objects as well. But one thing we haven't looked at yet is how the HTTP kernel component is used. In the Symfony videos, if you remember, we used the HTTP kernel component in order to replace the bulk of our framework that we had built from scratch. It provided things like a controller resolver and event dispatching for some of the basic events that exist, among a slew of other things as well. So what role does it have to play in Drupal 8? Well, the HTTP kernel component is so foundational that most of the time you won't need to touch it at all. The one time that it is used in Drupal core directly, and where there might be use cases for using it inside of your own code, is for something called subrequests. So subrequests are actually pretty cool. The idea is that you have one request normally. Your request is gathering information about what's expected, what's being sent from the browser basically in the query string and in the headers. And from there, we're going to build our response and send that back, right? Well, because all of that's encapsulated inside of objects, and we can also simulate requests, if you remember from the Symfony videos, we did that. We could grab all of the global variables from get and from post, or we could simulate that and pass our own variables in for those things. Well, we can do the same thing in a sub request. So we can say we want to grab this other page midway through grabbing this page that is expected by the browser. This could be useful for all sorts of interesting things. Normally, we'd have to do something like an AJAX request or try to find some API in order to generate the content on a particular page. But instead, we can send a sub request and grab that content as part of the initial request. So what we'll do here is demonstrate how to do that. It's not necessarily something that's going to be a common use case, but we can at least touch on the HTTP kernel component and how it's used in Drupal. This is one of the only ways that it's used directly in Drupal core. For the most part, it just provides a foundation for a lot of the other components in Symfony that we do touch directly.